Hey guys, today we are going to be starting on chapter 4. In comparison to the last 3 chapters, this one is actually a lot lighter because it's really just repeating a lot of what's going on inside chapter 3. So instead of what we did in chapter 3 when we only had one box plot or one histogram at a time, now we're taking 2 different distributions of data and we're going to compare them. So we could have 2 box plots and we're going to compare them to each other. So the main thing that happens when you get these kinds of questions is they'll give you 2 box plots or something and they'll ask you to compare the distributions of data. When you describe distributions in the past, all you really had to do was just cuss, so center, unusual features, shape, and spread. In this case, when you have 2, the point isn't to cuss twice, once for each distribution. It's to go through cuss and then compare each element to each other. So here, let's say we have group A and group B. So we choose to use either the mean or the median, and then for the center, we say the mean/median of A is greater or less than the mean/median of B. Going on to unusual features, you would say something along the lines of neither distribution A nor distribution B has any unusual features. However, if there is an outlier or some kind of unusual feature, you would have to mention something about that. So both of them have outliers maybe, or both of them show a gap here, or while one does not have any unusual features, this one does. Note this phrase here. When one distribution has an outlier, you can say that there's greater variation in some cases as well. Now for our first S in cuss, we have to talk about shape. So the main thing you would do here, your distributions are both likely to be unimodal or something. However, when you talk about how much it's skewed, then you can compare a lot there because you can say one distribution is more skewed than the other, etc., etc. By the way, you cannot talk about modality for box plots, which is why I did not mention it here, because in a box plot, it just shows you one continuous shape. However, you cannot see where the peaks are or anything. You just know that there's 25% here, 25% here. The most you can get out of a box plot is whether or not it's skewed. Now for spread. You have to say something along the lines of, after you pick your measure of spread, so IQR or range, if one of them has a greater spread than the other, then you say, for example, group B has a greater spread, and therefore it shows more variation. And you always have to give the numbers. So you would take the IQR of B, so the IQR of B is 7, which is larger than the IQR of group A, which is 3 or something like that. So going on to some practice, I'll give you guys a minute to pause here and try to work it out for yourself. So here's how I would write it. Sorry for my bad handwriting, this is kind of ratchet. So we have these 2 box plots here. We're going to first compare the centers. So group A has a higher median of about 41 millimeters in comparison with group B's median of about 28 millimeters. Note that I'm including the units for increased context. And if you wanted to go further, you could also say group B has a higher median petal length of about 41 millimeters in comparison with group B's median petal length of about 28 millimeters. Next, going on to unusual features. Since there's no outliers and you can't tell gaps from a box plot, you would just say neither distribution has any unusual features. And then shape. Although both groups are at least slightly right skewed, group B is more extreme in the skew because you can see 50% of the data is all clustered over here, while for group A, 50% is here. You can see that it's definitely not symmetric for group A. However, it's way less extreme than group B. So now we talk about the spread. So group A's IQR of about 60 minus 30, which is equal to 30 millimeters, shows less variation, is smaller than group B's IQR of about 72 minus 19, which is equal to 53 millimeters. So notice that for the IQR, I'm showing my work because they need to know where you're getting these numbers from. You can't just say 30 millimeters because the people grading your test don't know where did you get this 30 millimeters from. You need to show your math for the IQR. That's actually about it for chapter 4. There's just one more thing that they include in chapter 4. It honestly should be in chapter 3, but they have time plots. This is a graph that shows change over time. So if you ever get a question about which type of display is the best for showing some kind of change over time, the answer will generally be time plots. Time plots aren't limited to just this kind of display. Rather than showing lines like this, there are also time plots where they just take out the lines altogether and show something like this. So the only way you can really know it's a time plot is if you see the years at the bottom. But that's actually about it for chapter 4. It's pretty short, and so thank you guys for watching. I hope you learned something. Peace.